Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Okay, ready to jump back into Harry Potter? We're taking a deep dive into Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets this time. See if we can find things you might have missed, even if you know the story pretty well.
I think one thing that's great about this book is how much more of the wizarding world we get to see.
Yeah, like it's not just Hogwarts this time.
Right, we see more of how wizard society actually works, the history, the Ministry of Magic, all of that.
But it starts with Harry, right? Back with the Dursleys, miserable as ever. They even forget his birthday.
It just emphasizes how much he doesn't fit in there.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's desperate for somewhere he belongs, which is why Hogwarts is so important to him.
That need to belong, that's a big part of why his magic is so powerful, I think. Like, being cut off from it makes it stronger somehow. And then, of course, there's Dobby.
Oh, Dobby. Determined to protect Harry by keeping him away from Hogwarts.
Which, as you can imagine, backfires spectacularly.
That dinner party Dobby sabotages. I mean, talk about chaos.
Oh, it's hilarious. Rowling's great at using humor like that, The floating pudding, the whole thing. But it also makes you think about, interfering in someone's life. Even with good intentions, it can go so wrong.
Thankfully, the Weasleys show up.
Yeah.
In a flying car, no less.
What an entrance.
Right. And it's not just a fun scene. It's symbolic, too. Harry breaking free from the Dursleys, being welcomed into this big, chaotic, loving family.
Exactly. You've got Privet Drive, all strict and boring, and then the Burrow, which is just overflowing with life.
Total opposite. So new school year, new defense against the dark arts teacher, Gilderoy Lockhart, this big celebrity wizard.
Who turns out to be completely incompetent.
Right. It's almost funny how obsessed he is with fame, but it actually had some pretty serious consequences.
Because the students are totally unprepared when things start to get dangerous.
And they do get dangerous. Messages written in blood on the walls. The Chamber of Secrets is open.
Chillin' stuff.
Definitely. And then Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, she's found petrified. Everyone's terrified.
It brings this whole dark history of Hogwarts to the surface, doesn't it? The idea that the past isn't really gone. It's just waiting to come back.
And then, to make things even more complicated, Harry finds out he can talk to snakes.
Parseltongue.
Yeah, and everyone automatically thinks he's the heir of Slytherin, the one who opened the chamber.
It's really interesting how Parseltongue works in the wizarding world. Because it's not just a cool skill, it's something people are afraid of. Like, it's connected to dark magic, even though Harry hasn't done anything wrong.
Makes you wonder about how we judge people, right? Based on things they can't control.
Absolutely. It's a big theme in the book, how fear and prejudice can be so dangerous. Like with Hagrid, he's this big, scary-looking guy, but he's actually one of the kindest people at Hogwarts.
So people just see the giant, and they assume the worst.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to look beyond those first impressions, to actually try to understand people.
Which is something Harry has to learn to do himself, too, right?
Right.
Because he's got this connection to Slytherin, this ability that scares people, but that doesn't make him a bad person.
No, it doesn't. And figuring out who he is, despite all that, is a big part of his journey in this book.
So we've got this sense of rising danger with the attacks and the mystery of the chamber, but we've also got Harry dealing with these really personal questions of identity and belonging.
And how those things are all intertwined, how the personal and the political can't really be separated.
It makes for a really powerful story.
It's like Rowling plants these little clues along the way, and you don't even realize they're important until later, like when Harry and Ron go see Aragog.
In the Forbidden Forest.
Right. And Aragog mentions that basilisks can't kill spiders. Their eyes don't work on them.
And you're thinking, okay, cool, spider fact. But later, when Harry's trying to figure out what the monster is, that little detail is crucial.
Exactly. And that's why he survives in Myrtle's bathroom, remember? He sees the basilisk through nearly headless Nick.
Because Nick's a ghost. He can't be killed again.
Right. So Harry's not looking directly at the basilisk. It's these little details that Rowling weaves together so cleverly.
And the basilisk itself, I mean, talk about a terrifying monster.
It's not just made up either. Basilisks are in loads of old myths and legends.
That's true. Like death just from looking at them.
It makes it even creepier, right? That there's this real-world folklore behind it.
And in the book, it's not random who the basilisk is attacking. It's Muggle-born students.
Which ties into that whole prejudice thing we were talking about earlier. It shows how dangerous those ideas can be when they're taken too far.
Yeah, and the attacks on the students, and then Ginny going missing. That really ramps up the tension.
Harry feels so responsible for her, especially after he finds that diary.
Tom Riddle's diary. which is such a brilliant way to tell the story, because we're learning about the past, about the Chamber of Secrets, but we're also learning about Voldemort.
And it turns out the diary isn't just a diary, right? It's a Horcrux.
A piece of Voldemort's soul. It's terrifying to think about, like a part of him was actually inside Ginny.
It shows how insidious dark magic can be, how it can twist and corrupt even the most innocent person.
It's especially disturbing how Riddle uses Ginny's insecurities against her.
He preys on her loneliness, her desire to fit in.
Which is something both Harry and Ginny struggle with, right? The need to belong.
And that's how Voldemort gets them, how he tries to control them, by exploiting their vulnerabilities.
So Harry knows the monster is a basilisk. He knows Ginny's in the chamber. He has to do something.
So down he goes, with Ron and Lockhart.
Lockhart's not much help, though.
Not exactly hero material.
No. But Harry, he faces his fears, goes into the unknown to save Ginny.
It's a classic hero moment, isn't it? That descent into the darkness.
And then the fight with the basilisk. I mean, talk about intense.
Harry's really putting everything on the line here.
And he's not just fighting with brute force. He's using his wits. Fawkes the Phoenix helps too, of course.
And then there's the sword. The sword of Gryffindor.
Appearing out of the sorting hat just when he needs it.
Talk about symbolic. Like Harry's connection to Gryffindor, his courage, it all comes together in that moment.
It's not just about defeating the monster, it's about standing up for what's right.
Exactly. And when Harry destroys the diary, that's a huge turning point.
He's starting to understand the real threat of Voldemort. The fight isn't over, not even close.
But there's a sense of hope too, right? Because Dobby's free.
And Lucius Malfoy's plan has backfired.
It shows that even small acts of defiance can make a difference, that fighting for what's right is always worth it.
It's hard not to see the parallels, between the way Muggleborns are treated and discrimination in the real world.
Yeah, it makes the story even more powerful, I think, because it's not just about wizards and magic, it's about things that happen in our world too.
Like that whole pure blood mania with Lucius Malfoy and the others.
It's scary how easy it is for people to get caught up in that kind of thinking, to believe that they're better than others just because of who their parents were.
And the way they use fear to justify their prejudice.
Yeah.
Like with Harry and the Parseltongue. Everyone assumes the worst just because he can talk to snakes.
It's a good reminder that we all have biases, whether we realize it or not. We make snap judgments about people based on the smallest things.
And those judgments can have huge consequences.
Like with Hagrid. He gets blamed for everything just because he's half giant.
It's unfair.
No, it's not. But it happens all the time, doesn't it? People get labeled and ostracized for things they can't control.
And that's why Dumbledore's words at the end of the book are so important.
About how it's our choices that define us, not our abilities.
Exactly. We're not bound by our past or our genetics. We have the power to choose who we want to be.
And that's a really hopeful message, I think, especially for young people. It's like, you don't have to be defined by the labels other people put on you.
And Harry embodies that, doesn't he? He chooses to be brave, to be loyal to his friends, to stand up for what's right.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard. And that's what makes him a true hero.
It's not about magic or power. It's about character. It's about making the right choices even when you're scared.
And those are choices we all have to make every day, whether we're facing a giant snake or just dealing with everyday life.
The Chamber of Secrets is a reminder that we all have the potential for both good and evil inside of us.
And it's up to us to choose which side we want to nurture.
It's a pretty powerful message for a kid's book, right?
Yeah, but I think that's why these books resonate with so many people, because they're dealing with these really universal themes.
Like identity, belonging, prejudice, the power of choice.
Things we all struggle with, in one way or another.
And the books give us hope, Because even though the world can be a dark and scary place, Harry shows us that it's possible to fight for what's right.
That even small acts of courage can make a difference.
Exactly. And that's a message we all need to hear sometimes.
So that was the Chamber of Secrets. We uncovered some secrets, explored some deep themes, and maybe even saw the story in a new light.
If you haven't read it in a while, I definitely recommend giving it another go.
You might be surprised by what you discover. And if you're new to the series, well, you're in for a treat. This is just the beginning of Harry's adventure. And if you want to dive deeper into other great stories with us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.